Oh, yeah, it's that time of year again. It's time for another playthrough of Luigi's Mansion. Now, on Nintendo Switch 2 with improved visuals and no Pikmin trailer for some reason. I am very, very excited about this getting re released because this is one of those games that was very heavily downplayed back in the day. If you weren't around a lot of millennials back in the early days of the internet, you do not remember the seething hatred that a lot of people had for this game when it first came out. This game was seen as a disappointment. It was seen as a step down from Mario 64. It was seen as the staple disappointing Nintendo GameCube launch. This game was made fun of and hated for years until it over time it started garnering a bit of a reputation for, being a genuinely good game. So, as someone who has always loved this game and has seen it as like one of the all-time great GameCube titles, it is very, very exciting to see new players being exposed to this absolute gem. Even if it unfortunately comes at the expense of people saying Luigi's Mansion 2 and 3 are not quite as good. With time, I think 2 and 3 are going to be remembered a lot more favorably, but right now, like Luigi's Mansion 1 is kind of put on a pedestal. And it's very unfortunate because the game really is that good. It really deserves the recognition and the appreciation, but it feels like right now a lot of that is due to like nostalgia as opposed to genuinely being excited about the game. And that's kind of my mindset, playing through the game, is that like, yes, I still love it. I always will love it. It's an all-time classic. I can't wait to show it to other people. Like being on Switch 2 is a big deal for me personally, but at the same time, this is a really interesting example of how a great game can have some very real severe problems. The length, the difficulty, the lack of gameplay variety, all of it does feel as if this game could have been a lot better. But at the same time, it is an extremely polished experience that I've come back to time and time again, in spite of its very real problems. So, in a sense, both sides are wrong. Luigi's Mansion does have a lot of problems. It could have been a lot better, but at the same time, the actual product is an all-time classic. There is really nothing quite like this. Even the sequels don't really capture the same kind of atmosphere or mood that makes this game so endlessly entertaining. I have come back and played this game more times than the sequels. Like, it is an extremely replayable experience. And you could argue that they could have done a lot more with the concept. They could have had multiple endings. They could have done like all sorts of things. There were rumors early on that like initially this was supposed to be a way darker game, but I do think the unique vibe, personality, and design really leads into a monumentally unique experience that's very much unlike other horror games. And that is something that I think a lot of people do need to understand about this, is that Nintendo does indeed classify this as horror. It's kind of like with the Pokemon thing, where people don't really think of it as an RPG, but it is very much dominant in that niche. It is the biggest RPG on the planet. And Luigi's Mansion is the biggest horror game on the planet. Because of its ties to the Mario IP, because of how much this idea of Luigi being in a haunted mansion has taken hold in the culture, we are going to see the inevitable Luigi's Mansion movie do extremely well at the box office, to the point where I anticipate it go, as being one of the all-time great animated movies, just like the original Super Mario Bros. Movie, just like Super Mario Galaxy. Like, this is something that was initially extremely hated and despised by the audience at launch and has since gone on to become a classic in its own right. Like, it's gone beyond cult classic now, and now it's probably one of the major draws of Nintendo Switch Online. I have very little trouble believing that this game is more popular than The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, than F-Zero GX, than Soul Calibur 2, than Chibi Robo. Like this game is the major standout title in Nintendo Switch Online right now. Like this was the most excited I've seen people be for a game in a long while. And I do think that it is because Luigi's Mansion has really established itself as a very high quality Mario spin-off title. Like the sequels were great and really expanded the formula, but a lot of people, especially younger players, have never played the original. So, for those of us who are coming back or for those of us who are new, this is an extremely exciting time to just experience the game again with modern visuals, with some updates, with the ability to share social media features. Even you can take photos and then share like clips of things you find online. It's interesting to see Luigi's Mansion 25 years later and still see that, like, unlike a lot of other games from that era, it's aged exceedingly well. Like, I was very surprised coming back to this and seeing just how well animated it is, seeing how much personality. This is probably one of the best looking GameCube games there is. Like, it's really shocking like how well these visuals have held up, and I think they wouldn't have been possible if they had made the game longer and spent more time with padding the game out with pointless portrait ghosts or things that don't really add anything to the overall experience. The reason this game works so well, the reason why it's so endlessly replayable is because it's so short. Because it like always throws new and exciting things at you, because it's so well paced. Like, if anything, I kind of wish that more games were like this. Like I feel like 2001 was kind of the last era of classic Nintendo, because after this point is when we started getting into like modern Nintendo, where games started getting longer and they stopped having that like snappy feel to them. This is still very much a Yamauchi era Nintendo game. Before Iwata took over, before like the revolution, this was the next natural evolution of the Super Mario Bros. Giving Luigi his own game and giving him his own unique mechanics and abilities. And I remember, thinking how strange it was, playing this for the first time. Like, I'm playing this Mario game, as Luigi, and I kind of have this epiphany, like, wait a minute, I can't jump. you know, you have moments like that where EGAD tells you, like, oh, your brother couldn't beat the ghost in that haunted house. And I'm just like, but I did that in Mario 64. It's things like that that don't really make a whole lot of sense, but at the same time, like, it really draws you into like the setting of like the Mario universe, where it feels like things like this can just kind of happen, where they can just kind of do whatever they want and come up with something really unique, spectacular, and interesting. And with Luigi's Mansion, I think this really demonstrates how this was the video game that demonstrated just how versatile the IP could be. Where it's not about jumping on enemies, it's not about beating Bowser, it's a horror game where you're hunting ghosts. And that idea has a ton of potential. If you're like me and are a huge fan of the Nintendo series Fatal Frame, you understand how appealing it can be going through like a haunted house and like looking for ghosts. It's something that's very iconic worldwide. The idea of doing this, and Luigi's Mansion just gives it this really unique take and this really unique personality. Like, it's kind of shocking, at the end of every act, see, like when you go to the portrait machine and you see like all the ghosts you captured get pulled out and like printed into the paintings. You really get this sense like the developers put a lot of time and effort making this setting make a lot of sense. Like, and it's so out there and it's so wacky, but at the same time, it all feels supernatural. And it's to the point where I think this is where Luigi started becoming like a real cultural icon, because up until this point, like, he wasn't around for a lot of Mario games. Mario 64, he wasn't playable. He was Green Mario, for a long time. In Super Mario World, like his sprite is literally just Mario recolored green. Like Super Mario Bros. 2 existed where he was playable, but like that's a game that also features Princess Toadstool and Toad. So, like, Luigi for a long time was like a side character, and to see him like take on the protagonist role, and to see him like give his own identity, making him like the cowardly sidekick, and having him the brave, the haunted house, like all of this like did a lot to really grow and evolve Luigi's character to make him like really cool, interesting, and popular, and that popularity has continued to this day. With the Mario and Luigi series, with mainline Mario games, like Luigi has had a bigger and bigger role to the point where Luigi's Mansion is now considered like a very major Nintendo IP. Like it is like I am eagerly anticipating the inevitable Luigi's Mansion 4 from Next Level Games. Like I think they've been killing it, and I'm very excited to see what they come up with next. And it's interesting, doing this video and talking about this because last year, like into that, well, 2 years ago. No, it was last year, wasn't it? Almost 2 years ago. Okay, almost 2 years ago, Princess Peach Showtime came out. And that had a very similar reception to this, where everyone said it was too easy, it was too short, it didn't do enough for, to make Princess Peach the protagonist. But in reality, and you can already see this, that a lot of people really, really loved the game and what they did with the character. Like in a lot of ways, I feel like Princess Peach Showtime is the modern equivalent of this, where they have evolved this character that was just kind of part of the Mario brand, gave her her own spin-off game, and just absolutely killed it. Oh, by the way, Princess Peach Showtime is better than this, by the way. Uh, I adored Princess Peach Showtime. So looking back, like historically speaking, and seeing what's become of the boomers who have like decried this game for decades, like how they're all just shells of their former selves, how they're all streaming to like small audiences while they're high on cocaine. Like, when you see like the Mike Mateys of the world, like you really get this sense that like their ideas about what the Mario brand is have always been completely off base. They always have this idea like, oh man, Super Mario Bros. 3 was cool and badass, and then they ruined it with World. That like that's just not true. That's obviously not true. That never will be true. But it's something that they've been pushing for decades at this point. To the point where they downplayed Super Mario Bros. Wonder, a game that was better than Super Mario Bros. 3 in every single way, shape, and form. Luigi's Mansion is, I think, like probably the clearest example of just that kind of rhetoric kind of falling flat on its face, Like in the long run, this game was something that was super big with its actual target audience, children who love Mario, and they've grown up loving and appreciating this game and want to see more from it. Like this game was clearly a huge success. And the narrative at the time was that it was a failure. This was the reason the GameCube didn't sell as well as Grand Theft Auto as the PlayStation 2, because it didn't play like Grand Theft Auto, and Silent Hill was better, and there was all this like there was all this coping. And yet like Luigi's Mansion still gets new titles today, while Silent Hill hasn't had a relevant new entry since like what? Silent Hill 4 came out. Like, Silent Hill has been a dead IP for a long time, while Luigi's Mansion and the Mario brand as a whole has thrived and evolved. And that's my mindset when looking at this game's legacy, is that it has not only outlasted every other horror franchise, it has far surpassed them, to the point where it is almost certainly in the near future going to get a fully length movie. That is insane to me. I never really thought that would happen, but Nintendo seems to understand what they're trying to accomplish with promoting all their brands and evolving the formula and just growing these games and making them more and more popular. And it's interesting to me to see just how relevant this game remains in 2025, because, classic Resident Evil, Resident Evil has aged so badly that Capcom recently released a statement saying that they didn't want people to play them, that they just wanted them to play the remakes. And I think that's a testament to Luigi's Mansion's quality that Nintendo doesn't have to do that, that they were able to just re-release the original game and have it be such a huge success like this.